What's going on, guys? I hope you're doing well. Now, before we go any further, this is a video that I'm making after the course has been released, and just because I want to make things as simple as possible for everybody, and I want to make sure that you have the best experience. I don't want you to feel like, that you're not understanding something or that you just can't seem to figure something out. And so, in the same way in the scalping section, as we had those two tools, we had one for market structure and we had one for our displacement zones or imbalance zones, whatever you want to call them. In the same way, we're going to be using the same thing in the higher time frame here. And so I just want to quickly show you how you could basically just move your approach, your existing approach that I've taught you in the last video, in order to improve things going forward. And, remember in the section, I talk about confluence factors and stuff like this. And, I don't want you to get bogged down in the details too much. I would just advise picking, one or two confluence factors, out of the options that I've got you given you here. And I'm also going to create a lot more backtesting videos, both using these tools, without using these tools, just really showing you my process step by step from the top, the down, exactly from the top to the down, if that makes sense, and exactly how I do things. Okay, so let's just get straight into it. So if you remember from the scalping, I'm assuming you've watched the scalping, we've got this indicator right here. Okay, now let's just look at how it moves. So we're on the 1 hour chart right here. Okay. And so, when we are framing a setup that we want to get more pips from, then we are going to have to use a higher time frame because we need more context, as we've discussed. Now, we basically just rinse and repeat the same process. We go from a low to another low, wait for it to break, look for where the break originated using this. Okay. Using these candles right here. And what do we see? Price leaves, returns, and then, it even actually returns another time over here. Okay. This right here is going to provide us some really, really awesome opportunities to get involved with the market. It's just so, so simple. And then we can begin building our confidence factors, which we'll build on later in the next kind of coming videos. So in terms of using this, basically the whole idea behind it is exactly the same as it was in the scalping strategy. Okay, basically we've got number one, which is the line phase. Okay, so line break. Number two, zone drawn. We have tools for both of those things, and then three is lower time frame, market structure, momentum shift, and that's just another way of saying the lower time frame market structure breaking in our direction. Okay, that's pretty much going to be it. And then, as you'll learn later on, we'll add confluence factors to our decision making. Okay, but we can see here it's very, very nice. But what I first of all want to talk about, because I know that you already have a rough understanding of this, is I want to talk about the strength of zones, and we did touch on it in the video in the scalping section. But the strength of a zone is basically determined by two main things, I'd say. How many previous touches and how did it leave after being created? And there's an element of common sense to the second one. If price creates a little doji, this is what a doji would look like on the lower time frame, and it bolts out, versus price creating a doji and then kind of like trickling up for a bit and then coming straight back. This one's obviously going to be stronger. Okay, and so it's just another tool that you can use, but the main one that I pay attention to is how many previous touches have we had of that level. Okay, because ultimately, when we have previous touches of a level, if we have the understanding that with each touch, more and more of these orders that cause this displacement in price are being taken up, they're being filled, then with each return to the level, we're more likely to go higher into the level, and then eventually we're more likely to break it. And so this is a really, really classic example here. Okay, we have basically, I'll consider this one main touch here. And then when we come up again, we come a little bit higher. And then when we come up for the third touch, we come a little bit higher. And then what happens on the fourth touch? We break through massively. Okay. And if we were to draw this out on a line, it would look something like this. Okay. So it's important that you understand this, because it isn't just going to help you with your entries. If you think about it, you can also use this for your exits when deciding where to come out of target. You could look for another imbalance area to target, for example. So if we've got this imbalance area up here, and let's say we were looking to get in around here, where would be the next imbalance area? Okay, well, I would probably say it would be around about here. Okay, and if you're struggling to see this, obviously you're going to see a lot of white candles this way. And, if you struggle to see it just all together, what you can do is you can just use a classic, order block, or, an area of, support or resistance or whatever, just something like that would be fine. Okay, but you can literally just target, block to block like this. That's going to give you your highest probability. Why is it going to give you your highest probability? Because price is more likely to move a small amount than it is a large amount. Okay, it's harder to predict bigger moves in the market. And so by just prioritizing this small little range here, when we cut down to a lower time frame, we can then refine our entry and actually maximize what this position is able to give us. And so if we just look for that market structure shift, okay, so at this point, you could either have a line drawn on like this to mark the difference or something like this, or you can have the last kind of higher low. Okay, now for me, the last higher low is kind of arguable. I would actually normally I put it kind of the last thing that made the higher high, but just based on this structure here, you can see how we've kind of come down, made a slightly lower low than this previous low, then come up and kind of messed around a little bit. This for me is fine. Have stops there, and then look to target somewhere in this zone. Doesn't have to be perfect, for example, and then you have a very high probability of reaching that area. Now, alternatively, you can just use support and resistance to target. Okay, it's going to be up to you, but whatever you choose to do, the main important takeaway from talking about strength of zones, whether that is an imbalanced zone or anything, is the more touches of any level that the price has had, the weaker it becomes. And so if you're looking to target a level, let's say we've got two zones up here, we've got one zone, we've got two zones, and if you're looking for, let's say you're entering for a sell up here for whatever reason, and then you look down and you can see that there have been two previous touches on this lower zone, and you can also see a zone just below here. It would be totally fair enough to go down all the way. Okay, that's a terrible example. I always seem to mess this example up. So we go here, okay. When we go down, we're more likely to at least pierce through this zone a little bit, because this zone is going to be weaker. We may even go down to this zone. Okay, and so just by combining this knowledge, you can really understand and begin to understand, right, where's the best place for me to enter and exit based on how strong these levels are, because it gives you a tool to be like, right, okay, this is a strong level. I am going to get into this. I can probably get away with a little bit of a tighter stop here because it's a fresh level. It's a really strong level. And I've got this, and this confluence, as we're going to talk about in future videos. It just kind of gives you that tool set in your arsenal. And if you don't really understand this, just first watching it, don't worry. I'm going to have videos basically explaining me going through this process, backtesting videos at the end of this section. The same with the scalping section. I'm going to have videos of me doing it with with the indicators, without the indicators, just to kind of give you a clear idea of what's working, how to use it, how I do things from top down. And then once you've seen that, and then let's say you're confused at this video, you can then go back to this video and it should make more and more sense, okay, the more times that you look at it. Okay, so quite simply, with these understandings, we are just trading in a small little range here. There's nothing wrong with trying to target the the low of this structure or whatever, but the highest probability trades are going to come to the next major area of support, the next major area on the flip side. If we'd managed to get in here on the first touch, which is definitely possible, then when we were looking for target areas, we can use the this indicator if we want. We can also see that right here we have a almost not a fresh level, because we had this wick rejection here after we'd left. So this level was created, we came out, came down, created this wick rejection, and then where have we come into? We've wicked exactly into this area. We then come up for a touch, then we come a little bit deeper, and then we break on the third or fourth touch. Okay, very, very simple. Where do we break down to? Well, we could probably break down to around about here. Okay, and remember, I'm just drawing zones this way, just because we're in the habit of drawing zones at the moment, since we've done that. And so, there's nothing wrong if you find it easier to see it, just drawing like a support line there or something like that. That's fine. That's fine. It's not so strict where it's like you have to target this area, but just make sure whatever you do pick, you stick with it, whatever you find easy to pick. So, we have our main setup, and then let's say you find order blocks really easy to see, or you find support and resistance really easy to see. Just use that. Just use that. There's no pressure or anything like that. Okay, so just keep things super, super simple. But the main thing that you need to understand is, and I'll write this down, highest probability area price will reach is the next area of support resistance. Now, I don't necessarily just mean classic support and resistance. Like order blocks provide support and resistance. You know, displacement zones, imbalances all create areas of support and resistance. I just mean the next area where you can see that there is going to be some pressure in the opposite direction, that is going to be your highest probability. But that's not to say that there's anything wrong with, trading, to these lows down here just because you see this level and you prefer this one. That's fine. That's going to be in your trading plan. Okay, so you just have to remain consistent with your rules so that your probabilities play out. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. I'm going to look at one more example here, and then we are going to cut this video. So right, let's go. Let's look for a buy example. Okay, so here we go from high to low. Now, the next thing we're looking for is where did this displacement start? Well, I would draw this displacement zone from here because this is the displacement zone where it started, fairly big zone, and we can see that it wasn't really hit here, but we can see that it was hit here. Okay, now sometimes this is going to happen where you've got one marked on from over here and it leaves for a bit, maybe even gives you a setup in the other direction from this lower low to this higher low. And then, you look for where the displacement happened there, we wick in, then we come down to here. Okay, that is sometimes going to happen. And if you just want to stick to the recent swing, that's absolutely fine. It's totally up to you. Okay, the only thing I will say is just remain consistent with whatever you choose to do. Okay, and so very, very simply, let's just say we were looking at this upper one, for example, we would simply look at when price came in. This is the first major touch we can see. We have some wicks here, but the first kind of major touch, we can cut down to our lower time frame. And we can look for evidence the price is going to go against us. Okay, and so we can see that this is the last kind of major higher low. Okay, and so we're looking for this to break to confirm. This now becomes the new higher low. Why? Because this higher low created this higher high. See if we break. Perfect. So now we've seen a pretty decent break, have stops either below this low or this low, but it is the first bounce trade. So you can probably have stops a little bit tighter. Let's go back to the 1 hour to look for where our highest probability target areas are. Okay, so the highest probability just from looking at this would probably be here. Okay, however, there is nothing wrong at all with going down to the lows down here. It's going to be completely up to you. Okay, and so we can see here, it hit our target absolutely nicely. And yes, you can say hindsight is, is what helped us here. But ultimately, it doesn't really matter because all we're doing is looking for evidence that price is going to be changing direction at our level. Okay, I can see back here, we would have had a previous higher low violated, and then it's come back up here. Okay, that's going to happen. That's fine. But even if you entered, you wouldn't have got a signal here, but even if you'd entered up here, as long as you've got a decent stop loss, you'll be fine. And there's no harm. There is no harm in having a bit of a wider stop loss up here just because maybe you're not too confident with your entries yet, and there's just less pressure on yourself. There's no harm in having a bigger stop loss like this because it's just going to put less pressure on yourself. You don't have to enter at the perfect place. Oh, I don't understand market structure perfectly yet, and I just don't. That's fine. Like, no one is when they first start. Okay, so you can have a bit of a wider stop, give yourself a little bit more breathing room, and then target the original place you were going to target. That's fine. The only thing I will say about going for wider stops is just because you got a wider stop, that doesn't mean that you can randomly increase your risk reward just because you want a 1 to 4 or 1 to 5 or whatever. Okay, you need to make the decision ahead of time where you're targeting, and then your stop loss is going to be just one of those things. The stop loss is just going to be has to work in conjunction with your original target. You don't change your target just because you want a certain risk reward. There has to be a reasoning for it. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Very, very simple. We can see, we simply break, we leave, we break, leave, come back to this zone, and then bang, and then flush straight down. And then eventually, as we know, it comes all the way down to here. And so, if you're feeling like a bit of a gangster, you're welcome to target down there. So I really, really hope that has helped you. Don't worry if you're slightly confused at the moment, because in the back testing and the analysis and trade breakdowns that I'm going to post, it should make things a little bit more clear for you. Okay, but I really, really hope that you've enjoyed this, and until the next time, guys, I will see you there. Does that make sense? Until the next time, I'll see you there. Whatever. I've said it now. So yeah. Anyway, guys, I'll see you soon.